All right, we are a minute past the hour, and so we're going to go ahead and kickstart things. And of course, there will be a recording of this session for all of the attendees for you to refer back to. So let's get started. This session is going to be specifically on ServiceNow ITSM, Voice AI, and Contact Center. Specifically, how can together all of those components build an always-on AI-powered IT service desk? My name is Guillaume, G for short. I will be your host for today's session. And we're going to talk for the next 20 or 30 minutes about what are some of the things that you can do to potentially transform your IT service operations. Before we do that, though, a couple quick housekeeping items. Bear in mind that some of the things that we cover today could be forward-looking in nature. We simply ask that you take that under advisement. And if you have any questions, we certainly welcome the opportunity to have a conversation with you. That being said, we have a fantastic agenda. Again, normally we go for about 20, 30 minutes. We try not to use the entire hour, but we've got a lot of ground to cover. We're going to talk about market trends, sort of the state of customer experience, employee experience. We're going to talk about where ServiceNow and Contact Center come together, obviously specifically in the context of an IT service desk. And then we're going to take a look at some real life use cases and some live examples of voice AI and real-time transcription in action, of course, together with ServiceNow. And we'll close out with some key takeaways. If you do have any questions throughout the course of today's session, please, I encourage you, feel free to add those queries in the Q&A, and time allowing, we will either address them in the course of the discussion or towards the end. But yeah, let's get started. So I think it's always helpful to sort of lay the groundwork in terms of, where things currently reside. And when you look at customer experience, and I'm going to use the term customer experience to loosely also include employee services and IT service desk, experiences, whether they're internal or external. Very often the challenges are the same. And so when you look at customer experience, very interestingly, and perhaps not well known, is customer experience is actually at an all-time low. It has been progressively getting worse over the last decade. And a lot of that can be attributed to sort of what you might call legacy tech friction, in conjunction with rising expectations, from the users that you hope to serve. And so as a result, what we've seen is sort of this knee-jerk reaction, right? An enterprise reflex, if you will, that's really pivoted aggressively towards this mass adoption of AI. And the goal, of course, is very simple. One, how can you drive automation? The goal is, in that regard, to help replace those human touch points, lower your operating costs, and then really self-service, right? Can you encourage customers to leverage digital-first channels to really resolve queries, ideally without the need for a live individual to assist? But there's been a little bit of an AI disillusionment, or what you might call an execution gap. The automation fails, very often because AI is very dependent on data that today across most enterprises is very siloed. And that leads to either incorrect answers, even though they're provided from the AI very confidently. So that's what we refer to as hallucinations. Or you have what you might call a capability ceiling, right? AI can handle very, basic use cases like a password reset, but then breaks every time there's multi-step, inquiries that may require access to information that may not reside in one singular place. And so when you hit this sort of wall, this execution gap, everything gets escalated. And by default, the safety net ends up being the service desk, the very team that you're hoping to sort of reduce the payload on. And so there's this huge burden on these IT service groups that are basically trying to overcome the limitations of this mass AI adoption. And as a result, you get this perfect, reoccurring, self-fulfilling downward spiral that is really creating this, decline in the type of experiences that customers would hope to receive, but that most enterprises are finding very difficult to deliver. And it's not for a lack of technology, but very often, which we'll discuss today, how those technologies have been implemented and put to work. And unfortunately, the outcomes that today are not necessarily meeting the expectations. So really, the debate isn't really should we use AI? I don't think there's a shortage of knowing how we might apply it. Excuse me. The issue is, how can you make sure that if you're going to apply AI in your contact center, how can you do it in such a way where it's not going to break the very thing that you're hoping to improve upon, which is the customer experience? Or if we're thinking about IT service desks, typically your audience is also internal individuals, so employees. So if we take a look at what's broken, well, in the specific case of IT service desks, there are a number of challenges as we enter, well, we're in February, so we're past the entry point, but in 2026, there are a number of challenges that probably many of you face. And as we go through them, you most likely will relate to. First and foremost, you have this sort of agentic AI paradox, right? So you've got organizations and research like Gartner, for example, that have predicted that near half of enterprises will soon adopt some form of AI agents within their operations. But, and very often using starting with chat, very often there is a fragmented bot landscape that's causing really automation fatigue, if you will. And so that fatigue leads to frustration. And of course, all of a sudden, there are terrible handoffs to the human agents that are receiving that escalation. So agentic AI, in some respects, although deployed with the best intentions, is actually kind of aggravating the situation at the moment. Not saying it won't eventually be part of the solution, but it's had a rough start. As a result, you've seen this increase in voice. Now, obviously, we're here today to talk about voice AI and contact centers, so that's going to be a key focus throughout the course of this session. But voice has actually always been dominant. Why? Because it's the most versatile form of engagement. It can handle both simple and nuanced use cases, and can do so in a way that's more effective than perhaps what you might do over a keyboard. 80% of organizations are actually expecting to pivot or adopt AI-driven voice experiences. And that's driven by research from Metridy and DeepGram and so forth. And the idea is you've sort of got this typing bottleneck where it's, to some degree, depending on the complexity of the use case, it gets increasingly more difficult to explain the situation when it might just be easier to facilitate a conversation over a call. Now, when you enter AI, the expectation as voice and AI together, so voice AI is actually expected to increase call volumes, not decrease them. And so we're going to talk about how you can use voice AI to make sure you can address that potential tsunami of call volume coming your way. As a result, you've got this services squeeze. We sort of alluded to that escalation spike. Most CIOs right now are under massive amount of pressure to basically find savings, if you will, funding to pay for these AI projects and infrastructure. And so very often internal service desks and so forth are one of the first places that are cut, even though they serve a very critical role to the underlying operations of the enterprise. And then as a result, you have agent burnout, right? You can no longer throw headcount at the problem, if you will. And so how can you do more with the team that you have staffed today, especially given that if you survey just about everyone, the vast majority still prefer to speak to a human individual versus a voice AI agent. And we will dive into that. Now, we spoke about sort of the experience gap. There are a number of different things that are sort of causing this friction. Number one, this concept of sort of the dead end IVR. Now, if you're not familiar with an IVR, you most likely have been through one. It's the traditional press one, press two for sales, for support, and so forth. Very deterministic, very rigid, very static, and brittle in terms of what it can achieve. So very good in terms of, yes and no, binary, if you will, type workflows, but it reaches its limitations when you start having more complex conversational requirements. At the same point, you've sort of got this chatbot chasm. People are reaching a point where typing is reaching its limitations. It's great for very short exchanges, things that can be done effectively over short messages. But if you have a very complex problem, at some point, typing can be counterproductive and almost more time consuming, not less. And then you've got this disconnect, which we're going to talk about largely, which is the contact center, so your engagement layer, not being integrated with your system of action. And today, that example will be ServiceNow. So if ServiceNow is where the data happens, where the workflow is occurring, where the action is, and your contact center is where the experience and the engagement resides, until you merge the two, you'll see very quickly, if you haven't already experienced, what are some of the friction points that creates. And so, of course, if you look at the diagram, when a request comes in, when an inquiry or an incident is reported, in the background, it's basically a black box of a bunch of interconnected systems, siloed environments, different platforms, sometimes multiple contact center solutions. And really, what ends up holding it together is that human middleware, which are the agents that today run the risk of suffering burnout. So, what's the solution? Well, if you could start from scratch, of course, the simplest solution would be to have a single stack offering that really very conveniently organizes everything into very fixed, defined, uh, you know, uh, goals. So starting first and foremost with a foundation that's built on a clean data layer. From that data layer, being able to action that information, so that workflow layer. Typically, that's where your agentic AI resides. And on that, you then layer on your experience layer, the engagement between your operations and those that you serve. And then, of course, you want that feedback loop, which is going to be the insights, the reporting, analytics that can help sort of improve the overall data model so that each time you have an engagement, the next one is better as a result of the information that was collected from the previous one. So if we were to put that in the context of 3C Logic and ServiceNow, right? Your CRM, your IT service management platform and your contact center solution, what might that look like? Well, in the case of ServiceNow, you've already got the Now platform, which gives you that single data model, right? And on that data model, you've got different workflows. Obviously, today we're going to be focusing on their IT service management, their IT service desk solution. And in their combination, that really builds out your, what we'll call your system of record, right? That is your source of truth. And if you've been able to consolidate everything into one single source of truth, even though it may be pulling from different data sources, if you can collect them into one single area, then of course you can affect digital experiences. And of course, ServiceNow has its own native digital capabilities, whether it's live chat, chatbot, knowledge base. But in the context of voice and contact center, you can add a contact center solution like that of 3C Logic that can leverage that foundation to really optimize those engagements. So now the contact center isn't sitting outside of your ServiceNow environment. It's actually being woven into the workflows and data streams that you've built there. And so it's as smart as the information available in ServiceNow. And it has the ability to provide information back and enrich your ServiceNow environment. So we're talking about that feedback loop. And that could be in the form of integrating contact center KPIs into ServiceNow's platform analytics, into dashboards, into things like quality assurance, sentiment analysis, workforce optimization. And so what you have now is really a complete IT service desk offering that really solves for some of the gaps that we alluded to before, most notably the different data silos that prevent the activation of and adoption of AI, as well as the ability to enhance those live agent experiences when things still need to get escalated. Now, once you've done that, that's when you can apply those different AI capabilities at every different layer of this model. Now, if we were to take a look at what that actually, might look like in the real world, what we've done, just for convenience sake, is we've actually recorded a couple examples. In this case, voice AI together with ServiceNow, and the use case in this example, relatively basic, but one that can drive a number of different headaches, which is what happens when there's a major outage. Now, typically, when there's a major outage, all the different affected parties are going to do what any individual would traditionally do, which is they're all going to call in and want to report the issue. Now, as a service desk, all that does is create, depending on the size of your organization, hundreds, maybe thousands of duplicate, repetitive incidences reported into your ServiceNow environment. And of course, then you have to close them all out. It's very manual, time consuming, and it's also impacting your ability to answer any other tickets or callers that may be calling about something completely unrelated. So how can you automate that process and do it in such a way where it doesn't require the intervention of a live individual? So what we're going to do here is the example is someone's going to call in to report that they have an issue with their VPN. And we will see how, in this case, we will fully automate uh, the um, the experience in terms of understanding the intent of the caller, why they're calling, understanding, and searching whether or not there is any available information that might immediately answer or address their query. And then how can we then, solve it within ServiceNow and ideally to the satisfaction of that caller. So let me go ahead and kick that off for you guys.
Hello, Anthony Rice. How can I assist you today?
I am having some trouble with my VPN today. It hasn't been working since earlier this morning.
I'm checking now to see if there are any major incidents related to your VPN issue. There is a reported major incident regarding VPN connection issues with the reference number INC00100093. Are you calling about this?
Yeah, that sounds right.
I'm now linking your issue to the active major VPN incident. Please hold on a moment while I set this up for you. I have processed the ticket. Your reference number is INC00100143. Is there anything else I can help you with?
No, that's all. Thank you. All right, so we can go ahead and hang up there. And as we can see, a new incident has been created for us as a child ticket under that major incident. It has all the details. It even has our name associated as the caller, Anthony Rice here. And of course, now since there is that association, we have a record of it stored in ServiceNow. And if I need to follow up on any future resolution notes or status updates, I'll be able to push those through to anyone that's having the same trouble through those associated records.
All right, so what did we just see here? Well, you got to see what simple use case of voice AI in action. And so what we were able to determine here is, why is a person calling? Looking up major cases or incidences in this instance within ServiceNow to identify, is it related to a known outage, in which case it was, and then can we quickly automate and notify the individual that, one, we're aware of the issue, two, we want to document the fact that you're among the impacted individuals, and three, can we make it as in the form of a child incident, so that anything that happens in the major incident will automatically transpire and affect all those child events as well. So as an IT service manager of the service desk, I can close out one major incident, and by default, it will immediately address all the child incidences as well. I've also been able to avoid the need to transfer that call to an agent and have them, potentially have to triage those calls repeatedly, and instead reserve those human assets for more complex, more time-sensitive, inquiries that are deserving of their time, and also a better use of those resources. Again, relatively simple. And when we talk about simple in the context of voice AI, and we think about, the, challenges when it comes to, at least at this stage, the adoption of AI, really the best methodology up front is to keep it simple. Now, if we look at some of the typical use cases that you would apply voice AI in, the first one is actually using it to help direct individuals to the right person. Now, if you think about an IVR, which we referred to earlier, being very deterministic, not very conversational, right? If you have an inquiry that doesn't fit within the menu options provided to you, very quickly you're going to start yelling representative, hitting zero, and so forth. And it's sort of, you end up bypassing the entire intent of the workflow to start with. With voice AI, you can create very conversational experiences where the goal may still be to route to an individual, but you can, in a very short amount of time, understand the entire intent of the caller's requirement. It's more efficient, it saves time, and it also optimizes the ability to make sure you're routing them to the appropriate individual, as opposed to just next random available agent. So this isn't necessarily a case of self-service, but using voice AI to optimize the experience, not just for the caller, but also optimizing your operations in the process. Of course, you do want to use it whenever possible to affect call deflection in ways that can really add value. You don't want your callers to feel like you're trying to avoid them. And so again, if you keep it relatively simple, things like people calling in about the status of an existing incident, people calling in to report an outage or to create a brand new incident, all those capabilities, maybe after hours, for example, when your team is offline, those are all things that can be affected using voice AI. And then, of course, providing it to solve for those 24/7 use cases, probably the most popular one being, I'm locked out of my system, right? So again, voice AI, we expect, is going to grow. Its capabilities are going to evolve, not just over the course of this year, but in the years to follow. And most likely its capabilities will expand in tandem. However, in order to get the immediate ROI, these are some of the things that you can do right out of the gate. Now, again, we're not advising that voice AI is a silver bullet. To the contrary, we still advocate that human agents, live interaction, is still critical to your operations. But the goal is to make sure that you can use it at the appropriate time. And when those calls do actually reach a live agent, what can we do to make sure that we can affect that agent burnout that we alluded to earlier? How can we sort of remove some of the manual tasks that agents typically have to deal with today, that human middleware that I alluded to earlier, and really optimize the ability to really solve for their callers' needs without having to swivel chair between different systems, spend time looking for records and information to be able to facilitate the request, and so on and so forth. And so this next example is actually a little bit of a longer recording that we did just earlier that showcases a call coming in about an issue that someone is having. And you're going to see a number of different things happening, everything from real-time transcription to the automation of finding a knowledge article on behalf of the agent. And we're going to just together, experience what that looks like through the lens of an agent. And then we'll talk it through a little bit.
Thank you for calling support. This is James speaking. I understand you're currently locked out of your account and unable to log.
5 times now, and it says my account is locked, but I don't know what's going on really.
I'm really sorry about the frustration. I can definitely help you get back in. Before we begin, I just need to verify your identity for security purposes. Can you please provide your full name and email address on the account?
Sure, Tony Rice, and my email is tony.rice@3clogic.com.
Thank you, Tony. And can you confirm your username or account ID as well?
My username is TRICE26.
Perfect. Thanks for confirming. So just to clarify, you're locked out completely, or are you mainly trying to reset your password?
No, I'm locked out, I think. It keeps telling me the login is wrong, and it says too many attempts.
Got it. Thanks. So I'll document that you're receiving a lockout message after multiple sign-in attempts. Let's go ahead and reset your password to restore access. Can you go to the application login page and tell me, do you see a link that says forget password or reset password?
Yes, I see forgot password.
Okay, that's perfect. Go ahead and click on that link. So it should ask you for your account information. If you're seeing something like that, I should also note that the process has recently changed. So it's now requiring your email address to log in and not your username. So previously you had to enter your username. That might have been what caused the issue. If you want to just enter your email address instead.
Oh, wow, that's frustrating. I've been entering my username this whole time.
That makes total sense. You're not the only one that's been affected by this change. So once you submit your email, you should receive a password reset email or a one-time password. Let me know when that comes through, and be sure to check your spam or junk folder.
Okay, yep, I just got an email with a code.
Perfect. Go ahead and enter that code on the screen.
Done.
Awesome. So now it should prompt you to create a new password and just make sure it meets all the security requirements. So typically just use a passphrase like 3 unrelated words there.
Okay, I just set a new one.
Perfect. Now you should be all good to go. Let me know if you need any more help.
All right, let me try it. I'm in. All right, thanks for your help.
Awesome. And just feel free to reach back out if you need any other help. Have a great day.
All right. A lot happened on that call. Let me see if I can help break it down in using this quick screenshot to help sort of visualize all the different components that are actually occurring on behalf of the agent. So first and foremost, you probably saw on the left-hand panel, there was a constant real-time transcript that was occurring. It was the transcription of quite literally the spoken discussion between the agent, in this case, Tony Rice, the employee calling in, who got locked out. And as a result of being locked out, they couldn't use any of the digital mediums to solve their issue, hence why they had the call. The benefit of the real-time transcription, if you're able to catch it, is it automatically updated the incident title. And as a result, also created the short description and automatically went and populated the knowledge base search within ServiceNow. So the agent didn't have to go find the information. They didn't have to then identify the problem. That intent detection was done automatically using artificial intelligence, AI, and as a result, populating the articles that would likely be useful in the course of that discussion. So that's time saved, that's effort on behalf of the agent. That obviously goes to improving the total experience for the caller, and it helps shrink the entire duration of the exchange without necessarily impacting the experience itself. What you may have seen also at the end is when the agent hung up the call, they didn't put any notes. In fact, in the notes section, they wrote none. One of the issues that you will find is even with AI and the summarization capabilities that it brings to bear, the summarization is only as good as the data that it's summarizing. And so most organizations, what happens is, the summarization is still dependent on the manual notes that an agent has chosen or not to enter and the quality of those notes. In this case, our agent didn't have to put any notes. They just wrote none and can move on to the next call because the entire real-time transcription now finds itself inside of ServiceNow. And that transcription can drive things such as agent evaluations, which are, of course, powered by AI as well. So what was the quality of the conversation? What was the sentiment that Tony Rice, exerted during the course of the call? What are some of the things that the agent can do better for next time? So you get that automatic feedback loop for the individual, but it also provides for the administration of these teams really a standardized view of the quality of those engagements. And that can also drive summarizations, and those summarizations can be powered by ServiceNow Now Assist, which can, of course, then be used to draft, for example, automated resolution notes and things of that nature. So you can very quickly see that even if a call does reach an agent, AI can still play a meaningful factor in optimizing their ability to perform at a higher level than they might have before the introduction of these types of capabilities. And the net benefit is, of course, save time, better experiences, better reporting and insights, and of course, the ability to do much more with potentially the same team, even though you might be serving a very, very large audience. Now, if we take a look at some of the impact, the ROI. Very quick, simple example with a customer that we at 3C Logic share with ServiceNow, Cole, Scott, and Cassane, CSK. They're actually one of the largest civil law firms, if not the largest, in Florida, and have upwards of 600 attorneys and 1,000 plus employees within that civil law firm. And one of the biggest issues that they had, really foundationally, is that their contact center was just not integrated with their use of ServiceNow. And so one was not complementing the other. When we were able to combine the two and they were able to really allow for their contact center initiatives to be an extension of what they had built on ServiceNow ITSM, they actually got some pretty meaningful results. Most notably, massive reduction in the amount of time it took to actually reach someone or reach a solution. So instead of spending minutes, and again, let's remember, I'm not an attorney, but I know within the profession, billable hours, if you will. So time is quite literally money. So minutes saved is money gained in their case. All of that was reduced to seconds before they could reach the appropriate individual and then move on with whatever they need to do that day. Reduce manual work for the agent. We spoke to that example, prior to this slide. So the ability to automate notes and things of that nature, so the agent can move on to more important tasks, but not at the expense of the things that, of course, you as a supervisor may choose or would want to see. And then lower operating costs. They were actually able to serve a much larger team without having to grow the IT services group itself. And so that scaled the operation and its capabilities, even though at the same time it was able to improve, they were able to improve the overall service delivery and experience. So you might be thinking, okay, well, this all sounds great, maybe perhaps a little bit overwhelming, depending on where you are along the maturity curve. How do I start this transformation? Well, to be honest, step one would be to try and do a quick audit and figure out what are some of the top use cases that drive high volume, right, but are low complexity in nature. So one of the examples we showed today, someone calling in to report an outage. Another one could be someone calling in to simply, create a new incident perhaps something that's not time sensitive, or maybe they want an update on an existing incident they submitted a few days ago. Those are very high volume, low complexity issues that a voice AI solution together with ServiceNow can very easily solve. So what are those examples for you specifically? Two, the only way you're going to affect change is if you actually integrate your contact center platform. Today's example, of course, was our own 3C Logic's Voice AI and CCaaS solution, and integrate it with your system of record, your IT service management platform, and in this case, ServiceNow. Once you've integrated, then you're going to want to start piloting some of those use cases. Not just the voice AI use cases, those specific examples that you've identified that are high volume, low complexity, but also what are some of the opportunities to optimize the agent experience as well. If your agents are no longer swivel chairing between systems, how can you make sure that as they're operating specifically out of ServiceNow, that now calls and the types of daily activity that they're expected to perform are not integrated into those workflows, into that agent workspace. And then from there, once you've solved that, then the case is rolling it out and scaling it to a larger audience, right? Expand it to the entire service desk if you have more than one, so that you have complete coverage. All right, so what are some of the key takeaways? Because we promised we would keep this to a relatively short 30-minute session. Well, number one, what I would state is if you're currently in the process of considering replacement of your contact center platform, I would ask you or caution you to take a moment, pause, and realize that replacing one contact center solution with just another contact center solution is in and of itself not very transformational. But it is an opportunity to really actually rethink how you address and approach your IT service desk when it comes to the contact center component. And how can it actually be now woven into what you've already platformed on the ServiceNow IT service management solution. So first and foremost, I would encourage you to consider that really voice AI is that new front door, right? Before every call has to reach an individual, you have an opportunity now to really impact what were those static, brittle, more traditional IVR experiences, and to do it in such a way that it may actually improve the call deflection that you've hoped for all these years, as opposed to otherwise. Next, you're going to want to look at really the benefits of merging your CRM or IT service management platform with your CCaaS solution. If you do that properly, you'll find that that can be your secret sauce, and depending on your industry, potentially a competitive advantage, but at the very least, an opportunity to improve your operations, both in terms of cost, experience, as well as the insights that you have that drive those repetitive engagements that you're responsible for. And last but not least, as much as it is always interesting and fun to talk about AI, is recognizing that the human component is still a crucial factor within your organization. The goal is to be able to leverage those for the more complex, more multifaceted, multi-layered type requests, and to be able to really offload those more basic requests where voice AI can thrive and really buy them that breathing room to be able to perform those tasks and have really the time to do so in an effective manner without feeling rushed to move on to the next call because call volumes are so significantly high. And so how can you really use AI to optimize that portion of your organization in conjunction with voice AI, and of course, together built on your existing investment or perhaps future investment in ServiceNow IT service management for your help desk. So that concludes our session for today. Hopefully you found this informative. Of course, what we covered was in no way exhaustive. If you have questions, we certainly welcome the opportunity to address them, to talk about your situation specifically and how 3C Logic together with ServiceNow can potentially be a solution. Feel free to contact us at servicenow@3clogic.com. That's servicenow@3clogic.com. We are going to host more sessions such as these over the foreseeable future, and they will hit on different topics, be it industry, new features and capabilities, and very often, how they overlay with ServiceNow. So we welcome the opportunity for you to join us again. Feel free to follow us on LinkedIn if you don't already. That's typically where we announce all of our event schedules. And with that, I certainly hope we will see you again. And I wish you all a great day, and thanks for joining us. Thanks.